Hi everybody, Shavua Tov. This is Eve Harrow on Rejuvenation for the Land of Israel Network. It is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Sunday morning in the Land of Israel, April 28th, 2019, the 23rd day of Nisan, 5779. You might be hearing the birds chirping in the background. I'm sitting in a room in my home with the window open. You might also be hearing the dulcet tones of my washer and dryer working at full capacity after a week of towels and sheets and all kinds of very lively and busy things going on in my house with children and grandchildren. I hope all of you listening who celebrated the Passover holiday had a wonderful and meaningful holiday. I worked hard, as I usually do. It's either at home in the kitchen or out guiding, but it's a very, very special week. It started off hailing last Sunday. It was the day that I leave aside to do things with my family, and so we went up into the Shiloh area. We did a glass workshop at my meet that I've taken people to, but never taken my family to, so that was great. And it was really good that we planned something indoors because we had just started saying Morid Hatal, which is, of course, the prayer that we start saying the first day of Passover as the winter segues into the spring, that it should stop raining and it should just be dew, and then it was hailing. So Pesach itself just encapsulated that transition over from winter into spring, and now it's a beautiful day, and any one of us who have allergies and hay fever are now taking that because everything is blooming. But it was really more about the holiday in a minute. News coming in still about the tragedy in San Diego as I was cleaning up last night, moving the house back from all the Passover dishes back to the regular. The news came in of the shooting at the Chabad synagogue in San Diego. As I'm taping this, there is confirmed one person dead and 3 others injured. I was just talking with people over the holiday about Chabad. It's traditional to give more charity the week before Passover for people who can't afford the meals and can't afford to have the holiday. So those of us who are blessed to be able to do that, to be able to give and not receive. So I actually gave to 2 different Chabad organizations that week. One is International Chabad, because I know that anywhere in the world where there are people who want to have a Passover Seder, be it the thousands, not exaggerating, of trekkers, of Jewish and Israeli trekkers who are, let's say, out in Nepal, or in places very, very far from an organized Jewish life. There's Chabad going to make a Seder for them, but also here in Israel where they take care of poor people. Really a tremendous organization. I travel a lot, and Chabad is always there to be there, just to be there for people who need not just kosher food, but even more than that. To a great degree, they're really ambassadors for the Jewish people all over the planet. And then, to hear about this maniac and San Diego, and is this Pittsburgh all over again, and what is going on, except we know what is going on. So first of all, wishing whoever was injured a very speedy recovery, wishing the community the ability to deal with the trauma, because very often it's this who was hurt, but there are many, many people who are emotionally hurt as well. And hopefully someone's getting in there and is taking care of them as well. We have all too much experience here in Israel with what they're going through. And so, that's, how we ended Passover holiday here in Israel, was hearing what was happening with our co-religionists on the other side of the world. And of course, I'm from Los Angeles, so anything that happens in California, gets an immediate blink from me. But anyway, so I was talking about Passover a little bit. It's just so funny. I have a finger ID on my phone. I know a lot of people do. Just tells you how much cleaning and how many detergents have passed my fingers that my finger ID will not work this morning. It's whatever rubs off on my thumb or whatever it is, the identification, it isn't there anymore. I'm going to have to wait for that to grow back. So, but in addition to all that, I did some guiding. I was in the Old City last week with a family. We got in there right after the beautiful priestly blessing at the Kotel, the last remains of the supporting wall of the Second Temple, the Western Wall. And so the place was just packed. I mean, it was just an amazing thing to see. So many people there. Just a beautiful thing. Not just tourists, but also Israelis who come up. And the whole plaza, if you've seen pictures or hopefully if you've been there, just packed. You could not move, which is, you can look at it and be annoyed, like, why there's so many people here? And you look at it and go, wow, there are so many people here. Who would have thought a few years ago? It's just an incredible thing. And then spent a day also up in the Shomron in Samaria with family. And then was on a One Israel Fund bus that I had organized a trip on Wednesday in my home area of Gush Etzion. Sorry, that was a schluck of much needed coffee. And the theme of the day was pioneers of Gush Etzion, pioneers of the area, people who, how would I put it? Let's say put the cart before the horse. Okay. In the absence of proper leadership, both political and otherwise, in this area in Judea, where the Jews living here are under military rule, and the laws here are just not normal as they should be, which is, again, why the push for annexing Judea and Samaria, for putting Israeli law in Judea and Samaria. So where do you think I started my full bus off with? Where else would I do that? But at the ranch, at our gut ranch, with our guys, with Ari and Jeremy, with their families. And we planted trees. People donated money. We planted about 30 trees. Everybody, they took them around. We spent a couple hours there. It's an amazing thing to see. People were just like blown away by the vision, by the excitement, by the passion that our boys have. And it was a really great place to start the day. Rachel and Simcha Gluck from last week's interview. And wow, I got some great mail. Thank you for your feedback. People were just so touched by their story. And so they came up. They were at the Dead Sea for the week, but they came up to the ranch with Maor and with Yakir Ephraim. So everybody got to see him, heard a little bit of their story, but I pretty much directed them to the podcast. But they brought their salves of Jerusalem with them and totally sold out everything they had. It was just great. And people really got to see them, to talk to them, to, get their information, to be able to use them as resources for what they've learned. But this is what happens here is people go through, or not just here, everywhere, you go through tough times, and what you do with it is what's going to make the difference. And so they want to move that on, as we heard last week. So that was great. Then we went over to Hub Etzion, and to my friend, and she also does all my media stuff, Rachel Moore, and she talked about her initiative in starting a hub here at Workspace for people here in Gush Etzion. And now that she has done it, other people are doing it, and I think the government is also coming in and helping. And so again, in an area where nothing like that was going on, she pushed through, and now people are following her. And then we went to Oz V'Gaon, to the beautiful park and forest that was completely rehabilitated after the 3 boys were murdered a few years ago in their name. That's Oz V'Gaon. And Nadia Matar, who's the main person who got all that done, was going to meet us, except she had a very good reason for not being there, which is that she was at the brit of her grandson. Her daughter had a boy the week before. Nadia picked up the phone right away, I think within a few minutes, and said, I'm not going to make it next week to meet your group, but there's a really good reason why, best reason why. And so Mazal Tov to their whole family, but we were there and we looked around and we saw what happens, again, when people take initiative. After the 3 boys were killed, there was a lot of confusion and anger among the youth here, and fear. And she and others channeled that into rehabilitating a forest, which was just more than a junkyard, and into a beautiful place. It's a park. Absolutely beautiful. So we were there. We had a picnic lunch, and then we had a wine tasting with Yossi Zwebner, who has a very small winery here in the Judean Hills, also fulfilling the blessing of the tribe of Judah. Just about 5,500 bottles. The Zwebner winery, it's going to be hard for you guys to find it, but it's very boutique wine and really amazing, and he's won awards for that. And he was speaking to us about, because you don't go into winemaking to make money, but he's doing this and making fine wine, which, by the way, on his bottles he labels Bethlehem, because you said it cannot be that Bethlehem is associated either with the Palestinian Authority or with Christianity, when it is a biblical Jewish city. Of course, David, we're going to be reading in a few weeks, Megillat Ruth, the scroll of Ruth, the book of Ruth, which happens all around Bethlehem. And he said he's branding Bethlehem once again as a place for kosher wines and for Jews making wine. And for him, it's also part of the resurgence of Jewish culture in this part of the world. He said a good part of what people are known for their culture is the food and the drink that they produce. Like he gave an example that we all think of Italian cuisine. We think of pasta and tomatoes, right? Neither of which source out of Italy. So, but they've made it their own. And so he's not just making wine, he's also creating a new or going back to cultural identity for the Jews. And then we heard from Gidi Kelman from Sde Boaz, which is a small community currently without permission to be there, where they're building their houses just outside of Neve Daniel, right near the Patriarch's route. They're 10 Roman miles from Jerusalem. They overlook all of Jerusalem. Sde Boaz, of course, meaning the fields of Boaz, again, harking back to the biblical connection, and where they're building their homes, and he has a Zimmer there, and he's a world-class carpenter, and they're doing what needs to be done. And making sure that, we look around here and see all this illegal Arab building, so we make sure that the Jews are also building and doing what we can in this kind of nebulous region right now where, as I keep saying, and will keep saying until it gets straightened out, where the laws are all over the place. So people who have entered a situation and are not looking to the left and to the right or up for someone to tell them what to do, but are doing it themselves, little people who for me are great people and for whom it's really an honor to be associated with, these are the times that we're living in, that you have to look around, be good people, see what has to be done, see what it is in a good way that Hashem wants us to do as we return to our land. And in terms of building, so we ended up the day with, who would you think? Of course, Jenna and her Jacob's sheep. And so my flock on the bus got to meet part of her flock. I think she brought Ruth out with her. That was one of the sheep that they met. And again, somebody who's taken an initiative. And of course, you heard about her a couple of weeks ago on this show. So it was a really interesting day. The next day, I went with my husband on a special trip that was done during the intermediate days of Passover. The army very much tries to open up places that we can't normally get to, like Sebastia, Shomron, for example, which is in the heart of the Shomron. It was the capital of the kingdom of Israel. So that was open for 3 days. I was busy. I didn't get up there this time, even though it's one of my favorite places to go and one of my most frustrating. More on that in a minute. But I had signed us up for a trip to Tel Givon, to the biblical Givon. It is an absolute correct identification, because there are ostraca, there are pottery there, which have on it Gimel Bet Ayin Nun, which in ancient Hebrew, which is Givon. So a better identification that you don't get. Some of you might be familiar with Givon when it comes to Hashemish beGivon Dom, right? When Joshua and everybody, right around this time, just about 3,300 years ago, are battling Canaanites, and the sun stands still over Givon, Hashemish beGivon Dom. But there is so much other history there. It's where the tabernacle goes after Shiloh is destroyed, the Ark of the Covenant. It's where Solomon asks for wisdom and gets in Ozin Kashevet, he gets a listening heart, which is so much greater than that, and so much more history. It was in the tribe of Benjamin. It is where Saul's family is. Very interesting. So we took a tour there. We signed up for a tour. Let me just get back to that, because this is my frustrating part. So we had 4 bulletproof buses, and 130, I'm not exaggerating, 130 soldiers and border policemen who were either with us or all around us to protect us. And this is where my blood started boiling, because Tel Givon is not like, you feel like you're going to a foreign country, but you're not. It is just north of Jerusalem. I see it all the time when I'm in Nebi Samuel on the high hill, when I'm guiding in Nebi Samuel, and we look down into the northern part of Jerusalem. It's kind of sandwiched between Jerusalem and Ramallah, the Jewish communities of New Givon, of Givat Ze'ev, right there. But for reasons that still remain unclear to me, and also why these people have not been thrown out of every kind of public position possible, the architects of the accursed Oslo Accords in the early 1990s, who gave this tremendous archaeological site to the Palestinian Authority, hence the need for bulletproof buses and all these soldiers protecting us. Now, it's not that we went into their village and they were told to stay in their houses with their doors shut and leave us alone while we went around their tell. No, we drove through the village Al-Jib, which is that's Givon, and that's how you would say it in Arabic, and that's also part of the whole area. We drive through there. They're running around, the little kids, lays, no problem, and I have no problem with that. And we have to be like thieves in the night, protected, and understandably protected, because just like in San Diego or just like in other places, it's the bad guys with the guns who kind of rule the day, okay? And so there was reason to feel that we would be attacked. Of course, there was reason to feel that we would be attacked. A group of Jews on their holiday wanting to go visit an ancient site that's mentioned in the Bible and that's all part of our history. Of course, we should be attacked, right? Like, we're asking for it. Okay, so this is where my anger came in, and you can see it's a few days later, and I'm still really, really, really upset. So there's work to be done here. My feeling is we should have been able to drive in. My feeling is that it should be just an open site, and that archaeologists should also be able to work there, because we got there. It's an incredible site. You have all these huge pits. It was an enormous winemaking area, and so we have these what's a yekev, like you have a huge wine area where like the pits were, and there were pottery that was found. There were these big jugs, more really than anywhere else, and a couple of water installations, like you have also, let's say, in Megiddo and in Chatzor, for those of you who have toured the land, where you go down many, many, many stairs cut into the rock until you get to the water that's coming out inside, like an interior spring where the water is going to be running all year, because as we can feel now, the next 6 months we're not going to have rain, and that's how people were able to survive. But you do it inside your walled town, and therefore you can get to your water safely. So I went down into one of these tunnels. It is full, was stairs. My thighs were killing me for 2 days afterwards. It was stairs. Now it's really not so much stairs anymore. You kind of slide down into this water, going down tens and tens of stairs. A bunch of us did. My husband, who's not so fond of dark places below ground, so he waited for me with some of the other people up on the top, and it's full of garbage. So this is a site that could be a major tourism site. Definitely needs more archaeology done there, because there are still places that haven't been found, underneath there that we know of, and still a lot of question marks about who cut what when. Like, there's an underground tomb. It's clearly a place where there was burial that at some point was turned into an olive press. Also, you can see still where they would put the major beam for putting, as opposed to grapes, for, putting heavy beam and weights in order to crush the olives for oil. And still a lot of questions that are not clear about when was it? Well, we would say mid-bronze. Was it Iron Age, which is kingdom, monarchy, and when and who, and there's layers of destruction. Is that layers from Joshua? Is that layers from Pilegish Begiv'ah, the story, right, at the end of the book of Judges, even though it probably happens earlier than the end of the book of Judges, but that's where the book of Judges ends up, with the story of the Benjaminites being almost completely wiped out by the other tribes, and then reconstituting themselves, which is the theory of Jabbo, of Zev Erlich, who is the guide that we were with, who's one of my favorite guides. I'm not going to be able to interview him, though, because his English isn't good enough, but he's just phenomenal. And his theory that the family of Saul, who's associated with that area, go look it up in Chronicles, in Divrei Yamim, settled in different villages there because, they were needed to, get the land back. Some stories just don't change over time. So just so much there and so much junk. The Arab village next door just treats it as a garbage dump. I'm sure they do digging there for artifacts whenever they can. So for them, it's a win-win. You can despoil and put down and disrespect a biblical site. You can turn it into your garbage dump, and you can also maybe mine it if you want for for things that then you can steal, and then it ruins the archaeology, and it's just win-win all the way around. But the fact that successive governments have let this continue, and also, as I mentioned, in places like Shomron and Sebastia, to me is just not understandable. It's just not understandable. We are so strong. We're so strong. So why do we let this happen? Why do we let ourselves be humiliated like this and let history really be erased? It is so incredibly upsetting. And I just hope that as the new government is formed, and I really haven't been paying attention to what's been going on. I've been doing my day to day. But as the new government is formed, you have people in key places who will stop this kind of travesty so that we don't, so the next time that I want to go to Givon, I could just drive up there, go around, say hi to the archaeologists, even as I've done in other places, like let's say with Dr. Scott Stripling in Shiloh, be able to go and interview the archaeologist who's there without worrying about it. And the reason that Scott Stripling and others can dig in Shiloh, and Naamaya Halom Mak, who I've also interviewed, can dig up in Tel Abel Ma'akah up in the north, is because Israel has control of these places, and so we can get there, and scientists can get there and do what we need to do. And when I get to places, and I'm incredibly grateful to the army and to all the soldiers and to the border policemen who ensured that we're going there. I'm in no way upset with them. Quite the opposite. It's also their holiday, and instead of them being out at the beach or them going around and smelling the flowers or hiking up in the north and seeing all the beautiful waterfalls or being with their families, they're there protecting us. And so I have tremendous gratitude to all the security forces who this entire week all over the land made sure that pretty much everybody came home safely. At least, they can't prevent people from falling off cliffs or dehydrating or doing things that always happen. But in terms of keeping us safe here from people who are constantly trying to hurt us, and not just here in Israel, but also where you are, this is happening. And so we need to take a minute to thank all our security and intelligence forces for doing what they do. It's inevitable that something's going to slip through, let's say like what happens in San Diego. But here in Israel, given the lunatics around us, or not lunatics, maybe that would be giving them credit, the very bad and evil people around us and within us who are constantly trying to disrupt daily life. So really tremendous thank you to all of those people who made sure that the vast majority of the people who did Tiulim, who did trips around the land this last week, came home safely. But it's just very frustrating for me that it has to be like this. And we looked there from the we looked out onto one of the Arab villages nearby, and they told us that that's where Nachshon Waxman, for those of you who remember, almost 25 years ago, the soldier that was kidnapped and killed during the rescue attempt. Esther Waxman, his mother, went on to become a speaker. Some of you might have heard of her. And so that was the village where he was held. And just like, there are going to be bad people, and there are things that we can't stop. And then there are also decisions that are made that are just so stupid. And what were people thinking? And how do you not understand what it is here in the Middle East, which is carve a safe space for yourself and protect it with what you've got, with everything you've got, and don't give it up to anybody else. And if anything really points out that story so well, it's the story of the original Givonites who tricked Joshua and the Israelites into having a treaty with them, and therefore don't get the punishment that they deserve for being the enemy, and we've got to go and help them in their battles. And so much of what goes on in the past still resonates today. The stories, the people, maybe the what we're wearing, right, in the context of the times change, but there's certain essence of things that just in the same place that come back over and over and over again. And if you're going to have a peace treaty with people, and I certainly hope that we do, and we'll hold out our hands all the time to our neighbors, make sure that they don't have security control, all right, that they are not the ones who can dictate whether you live or die, and that we all get the benefits of having a nice relationship, but they don't get to decide where you go and how you go and if you need to be protected when you go there. That is just like beyond. So that was Eve's peeve for today. I am On the way out again. It is Sunday morning, but late Tuesday night, I'm leaving Israel just for a few days. Mizrahi, a religious Zionist of America, as you might recall last year, I was in Beverly Hills. So they have this next Shabbat. They are sending well over 70 people all around the world now, not just North America and Canada, to speak about Israel, because next week is our Independence Day. So this year I'm going to be at Congregation Ohev Shalom in Merrick, Long Island. That's next weekend. That's Shabbat, May 3rd and 4th. And then I'm also going to be going to Teaneck, New Jersey, to Congregation B'nai Yeshurun on Sunday morning, May 5th, to do a presentation. Probably the same one that I did in Phoenix, which I absolutely love, a PowerPoint that I put a lot of time into about Israel. So if you're around in either of those areas, I would love to see you. You can go into my website and see what my schedule is. Planning a trip to North America the first week in September, because the holidays are not late this year. I mean, the holidays are late this year according to the Gregorian calendar, but of course, according to the weather in the land of Israel, the holidays are right on time. But Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the high holidays are not going to be until October on that calendar. And so I'm going to be sneaking in, I think, at the end of the summer, beginning of September, a quick trip to the States. Nothing else planned from now until then. One of my daughters is due to have a baby in July. So I'm doing some little trips around going to Greece with my granddaughters, doing a couple of things like that. But other than that, kind of staying in the Middle East, at least right for now. But things change, and sometimes I get an email and somebody will want me somewhere, so I'll go. So be in touch. And if you think that this voice and what I have to say about our journey is something that you would like your community to hear in person, then be in touch, Eve at thelandofisrael.com. I want to thank Ben and Tabitha, as usual, and all the people here on the station for allowing me to vent and to interview and to do some of the things that I do. And to all of you for listening and for being in touch and giving your feedback. I so appreciate it. I really do. But now I've got to be off. Got a lot of things to do in the next couple of days that were kind of in abeyance over the holiday. But I've got to get cracking before I leave in a couple of days. So I will be back, though, God willing, next week. Eve, Rejuvenation, the Land of Israel Network. Take care, everybody. Goodbye for now.